So the reason for eating meat and dairy is pleasure for 400 years. And you might say, well, but Alan, it's not against the law to eat meat. It's a completely legal thing that the vast majority of the population do. So what's the problem there? So if you want to be vegan, if you want to go plant-based, fair enough. But don't ask me to do it. I don't tell you what to do. When we eat meat, we're not actually abusing animals. Well, we're not abusing animals personally ourselves. We're paying. We forget completely about the victim. What about the personal choice of the animals? Hello, good morning again. Here I am again. Today it's a little bit windy, so hopefully the sound quality will be, just looking now, it looks okay. I hope that the wind doesn't distract us too much. So before I became vegan, before I made the change, I used to think of vegans, or people with this mentality of animal rights activists, vegans, as being really extreme. I used to think they were kind of preachy, going around trying to convert people to their way of thinking. And I used to think to myself, well, look, you know, I respect their views. So if you want to be vegan, if you want to go plant-based, fair enough. But don't ask me to do it. I don't tell you what to do. Please don't tell me what to do. It's my own personal choice. This was the mentality I had. So the question is, was I right to think or to believe that it was my own personal choice? Is that an acceptable position to have? I mean, after all, we live in a society where we're free to choose what we want, and eating meat is one of the things. It was my choice, but does it stand up to any kind of moral scrutiny? The thing is that deciding whether something is right or moral or just based on a choice is not a good argument. Because, for instance, if I decide to abuse a dog, for instance, there's a dog in the street, I decide to hold it down, to kick it, to beat it, to make it suffer pain and everything, is that morally justifiable? Because I can say then, well, you know, it's my personal choice to do that, so that's okay, right? Of course, you might say, well, that's not the same. When we eat meat, we're not actually abusing animals. Well, we're not abusing animals personally ourselves. We're paying somebody else to do that for us. You might also say that in my example, it's also not the same, because the dog doesn't die at the end. I'm just doing it for the pleasure of abusing a dog. So in my example, I just want to cause pain, and it's my choice to do it. And you say, well, we don't actually choose to cause pain to the animals. We just simply want to eat the meat. But you're also doing it for a pleasure. When you eat meat, you're doing it because it tastes nice, for no other reason. We've already established that there are no health benefits to eating meat. In fact, the reverse is true. So the reason for eating meat and dairy is pleasure. And that pleasure means that somebody on your behalf has to go and slaughter the animal. And these animals are raised in terrible conditions. So personal choice is not a justification for something being morally correct. For instance, for 400 years, and you might say, well, but Alan, it's not against the law to eat meat. It's a completely legal thing that the vast majority of the population do. So what's the problem there? The problem is that legality, whether something is legal or not, is also not a good measure of whether it's morally justifiable. Slavery was legal for 400 years. But I don't think many of us would argue today that it was a morally acceptable thing to be doing. But it was legal. There were even laws about how slaves should be treated. So welfare of slave laws and things like this. I think most of us today would agree this was a morally unacceptable thing to do, but it was legal. So whether something is legal or not is certainly not grounds for determining whether or not it's moral. Another thing about that it's my personal choice to eat meat argument is that we forget completely about the victim. What about the personal choice of the animals? Do they really not count at all? Do you think it would be the personal choice of the animal to be raised in filthy conditions, to suffer most of their lives so that they can give you a nice tasty piece of salami on the top of your pizza? It's unlikely. You see, when we eat meat, when we eat dairy, and when we say, look, leave me alone, this is my own personal choice, we completely disregard the victims. And also, I'm not talking just about the animal victims. What about the people who work in the slaughterhouses? Aren't they too the victims of our hunger for meat? Nobody wants to work in a slaughterhouse. These people get depression, they have all sorts of psychological problems. So the victims of the system aren't just animals, they're also humans as well. So the argument, it's my personal choice, completely misses the fact that there are victims involved, and maybe they have a personal choice as well. And one more thing about personal choice. When we say it's our personal choice, what we actually mean, well, we're lying to ourselves. Okay, so when we say it's my personal choice, what we're saying is it's the ego's personal choice. We have an identity. We see ourselves as a meat eater or a dairy eater or whatever. And this identity is coming from the ego. So the ego says, we are meat eaters, I want taste, pleasure, I don't care what happens to the animals. Well, maybe I do, but I want to completely disregard that. I want to ignore it. The animals are fine. I want this taste, pleasure. I want to eat my steak. I would like the taste of fish. But this is all coming from the ego. So inside of us all, we have an essence as well. So there's a reason that people don't want to watch videos of animals, of how animals are raised and how animals are slaughtered. There's a reason for this. And the reason that people don't like to see these videos is because in our nature, human nature, is we are compassionate. That means that we have, in our essence, is compassionate. That's our true self. That is the true you. We are compassionate people. That's why you can't watch the videos. But our ego is overriding our true selves. Our ego is saying, I want the taste. I want something to taste now. I want 2 minutes of taste pleasure and I don't care about anything else. But that's the ego. That's not you. That's not your essence. That's not who you are. And so when you say it's my personal choice, actually it's not your personal choice. It's the personal choice of half of who you are, your ego. But the great thing about being vegan is it's an opportunity to get our ego under control, to reel it in. Come on, little ego, I've caught you now, and I'm going to reel you in. And I know you want to have a nice piece of meat, and I know you want to have a taste of fish in your mouth and all these things. But today, we decided to go a different way, and I'm going to reel you in, and I'm going to get my ego under control. And speak to any vegan, and they will definitely tell you, after making the change, they've got a sense of they're more in tune with their own essence. So I hope that wasn't too spiritual, and I hope the wind didn't distract us too much. So yeah, hopefully that's given us something to think about. It certainly was something that I thought about yesterday, and I wanted to make this video today. So thank you very much for being there. See you tomorrow.